considered weird if men do it nowadays. And that is the state of what has happened to men and masculinity and anything related to manhood nowadays. Is we're wrong. We're wrong. We just have to accept it, and that's how it is. And no one wants to come to our defense.
Hold the line, gentlemen. It's all about self-preservation and retiring early without being cleaned out by divorce court.
If you're a man and you're there.
So glad to see backup arrive. Well,
first off, I want to talk about this. Talk about Doge. There's been a big update that Doge put out on the money they've saved, and I can't verify. My understanding is that people that looked into it, they claimed something like 40 to 50 billion in savings, but some of the contracts on the website they put out listed were mislabeled. Yeah, here's James Chanos, a guy I very much respect, posted this. They claimed $55 billion in savings, but when they look through all the things on the website, it only actually adds up to $16.6 billion. And then there's a massive error in the data, which is that one contract that was for $8 million was labeled as $8 billion. That's what it says here. They had a contract that said that they canceled that was it was listed as saving $8 billion. But when you actually look at it, it was just $8 million. So, it could be an error, it could be not, but it changes drastically what is actually being saved. Again, everything on there adds up to 6.6. If this is all true, and the total saved is $8.6 billion, that's, an extremely small amount given the problem. And to top it off, so Mike Green, a guy I also really respect and follow, did a little math on what he's talking about. Elon Musk said this: we're going to send all Americans a $5,000 check using Doge savings. Okay, that's interesting, because if you do even a basic amount of math on that, you might notice, that's $660 billion. So we're going to want to print or borrow money to send $660 billion out to people after a savings of, and he gave $50 billion, more like $8. So we saved $8 billion to send out $660 billion. It just feels so politically motivated, dude. That's so inflationary. Part of the deal. So I don't understand. This is my stance on Doge, that it will not save money, our deficit will not go down, and it's all like a political stunt. But that alone would be one thing. But then to pair not actually cutting things with a drastic increase in spending and massive stimulus checks, which was the big cause of the huge surge in inflation in 2021, this is so stupid. Give me that stimmy. At least, though, one thing is true. If we all get $5,000 stimmy checks, NFTs are back. 2021 is back, baby. NFTs are back. Shitcoins are back on extra level. StockX is back. Everything. Dogecoin's back to the moon. The good old days, the blue chip meme stocks. GME's coming back. Tesla back. Yeah, it's just this whole Doge thing has been a disaster. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but knowing some people who work in the government and hearing firsthand what some of the changes have been like, just, I can't say anything about but bad. Just new executives being put in place who are 24 years old that have no idea what they're doing. You can follow up there on your own. New executives being put in place who are literally 24 years old, have never led any department like this, who are sending out messages asking people to here's an example of someone I know that works in the government. Everyone in the department got sent a message on the weekend demanding 24-hour return of a bunch of questions answered to prove how they're on the job and ready to be loyal and respond quickly. It's crazy shit like that. And, there's always threats of layoffs. It just feels very, very chaotic. Of course, I'm a supporter of trimming government spending. I'm long for that. But it's clearly the way it's being done is so shotgun, so vindictive. Again, one of the major things that got cut, and I know this is one of my least popular takes, but I've been saying it forever, so I keep saying it. It's insane to think we can balance the budget by doing massive deep cuts to the IRS, which is happening right now. They just laid off a ton of IRS workers on taxes. And I know everybody's like, I hate taxes, I hate the IRS. It's not impacting you. It's all it's doing is making it near impossible for the IRS to do any sort of tax collection on rich people. You know what I'm saying? Like, the reason you need more agents is not for your W-2, dude. That's in and out. It's easy. It's for the people that have armies of tax lawyers. The IRS being underfunded is a deliberate strategy to make sure that nobody rich can pay taxes. And, you know, when you cut the IRS budget, what you're doing is cutting the government budget, right? Because there's no way the government can collect taxes without a functioning IRS. And so you're just blowing out the deficit even more. Because we're not cutting, you're not cutting spending equal amount. There's more IRS workers should I cheat on my taxes this year. Well, what's crazy is the agency, the part of the IRS that has the biggest layoffs is the one that deals with small business taxes, like S corp taxes, which is the best way to cheat taxes as a rich person. You create an S corp to hold all your assets. So if you are a person that has that, yeah, it's a good year to cheat on your taxes. It's going to be very hard for you to audit. Yeah, I mean, it's 8,000 or 6,000 employees. 6,000 employees are being fired at the IRS in the middle of tax violence. Yeah, it's crazy. Additionally, they also cut the easy tax file the government was putting together. Is that the $8 billion in savings? They have a website. You can check the website. I don't know. The Doge stuff, that's my update on that. It's not great. Oh, and then I also want to talk about the Eric Adams stuff. You don't know what it is. I'll give you a quick refresher. What I want to do is find that email. Anyway, let me just know what's going on. So this is Eric Adams, right? He's the Democratic mayor of New York. And he is getting indicted on corruption charges. Basically, he took bribes to give special building permits and access to, like, Turkish nationals. Incredible corruption. For Trump's election, Eric Adams started talking really pro-Trump. And apparently had a meeting with some of Trump's people, whereupon afterwards he agreed to set up an ICE detention facility and crack down on immigration in New York, thought to be in exchange for the dropping of corruption charges. It's called quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. I'll do something for you, and then you stop me from getting indicted for something I did. That's corruption. That's corruption. It's looking like this is happening. It's going to happen. Yeah, this.
We're going to be going to a random island nation and dropping off $100,000 worth of gold and silver. In the meantime, we can get some for the people here. All right, you guys want some? Boom, 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 boom. Listen, it's going to be $100,000 worth of gold and silver in a random island nation. Some random island nation, a nation on an island. And we're going to have to go over there, and we're going to have to drop off 100,000 stash.
What we are seeing potentially, and I don't want to get too ahead of my skis, but if we do our job, we could be entering a Pax Americana.
So that was Charlie Kirk, and he's saying basically, hey guys, we're going to have an awesome time with Trump and Musk, and we got this great opportunity to have a Pax Americana, biblical kind of thing, 1,000-year period, golden era, whatever you want to call this thing. And I want to go over some of the rhetoric they're saying over there in the, we'll say that, universe of podcasts and YouTube, etc. And some of the stuff they say is frankly strange, but you have to understand it, understand the world that we're in today. So first, how to listen to this. We have an opportunity with this combo, world's richest man, President Donald J. Trump, to do something that we never would have dreamed. There's no guarantees we can derail in one day. We can make one bad decision, just like Nixon, painted himself, Watergate. Nixon was one of the most popular presidents ever for the intel agency. We must stay on our toes, understand the intel agency, everything possibly can, asymmetrically take out President Donald Charlie's basically saying Trump and Musk are awesome. They're the most awesome team in the world. They're just like God. We should worship these people. That's what it boils down to. And then they got this weird version of history where he was saying stuff like Nixon was really popular and he was taken down by the deep state, and the deep state, I guess, is after Trump as well. I think he refers it to the intelligence agencies or something of that nature. I wanted to talk about facts here. So the claim that Nixon was really, really popular, I didn't know that was a thing in right-wing podcasters. That's what they talked about. I didn't know that. But these are numbers. These are popularity ratings throughout history. At the highest approval rating, I think in terms of Gallup. So Biden was 57, that's the highest approval. Trump was 49, his highest approval. Barack Obama 69. George W. Bush 90. Bill Clinton 73. George H.W. Bush, that would be the first Bush, 89. Ronald Reagan 68. Again, these are the highest approval ratings in terms of Gallup. Jimmy Carter 75. Gerald Ford 71. And then you got Nixon there at 67. I mean, it's clearly not the highest in history. I don't know what he's referring to. He's the Charlie Kirk guy. And you got Johnson 79, Kennedy 82, Eisenhower 79, Truman 87, and Roosevelt at 83. I just want to show you guys some basic facts. The problem is that when you're the right-wing media kind of thing, facts aren't really that important to people. They mostly just repeat the same sort of things, talk about kind of religious sort of things, believe in Musk, believe in Trump, believe in money, which is a big other thing, part of their sort of thematic language. Have a listen to this. The most powerful person on the planet is the richest person on the planet. Elon Musk is so wealthy, he could buy Spain. It's not an exaggeration. He could literally buy Spain. And not even think about it. It's like a rounding error. He can just buy countries. What he has decided to do with his wealth, which you're always going to have wealthy people, is the opposite of what our elites have done for the last 30 years. So he's bragging about that Elon Musk is so rich that he could buy Spain. Like, where do people come up with this stuff? So I was just kind of curious, just for fun. We'll do a little brain exercise. Okay, so if I wanted to buy Spain, this is according to ChatGPT, Spain would cost, well, we'll start with GDP. I guess 1.5 trillion GDP, right? Something like that. I mean, I don't know if that's really a cost of Spain because it's not really for sale anyway. If you wanted to talk about actual land of Spain, they did a calculation of this, and I guess theoretically, if you had enough money to buy all the land of Spain, maybe 83.6 trillion. So, regardless, we're talking in the trillions of dollars of the cost of Spain if you wanted to buy that. And the thing is, it's like when you talk about people who like Musk, like Trump, I think a lot of these people don't actually know. So, Musk's net worth at the moment, according to this, February 24th, 2025, is $384 billion. So I just want to make it really clear. 384 billion is less than 1 trillion. Okay? And I know it sounds really stupid to say it that way for those who understand numbers, but there's people out there that actually don't understand numbers. I know it sounds mean, but that's the kind of audience that Charlie Kirk, those kind of people, right? They're like, oh yeah, Elon Musk is rich in the world. He can just buy any country he wants. A couple minutes left here. Russia. There's a huge push.
Oh yeah. Like before, like so it's like
To end
they
this war.
say like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm a bought asset of Putin.
Yeah.
I'm like, he can't afford me.
Yeah. I think you're worth more than much.
Think about it.
It's funny, right? The thing I want to mention as well is much of Musk's net worth is based on Tesla stock. And, Tesla stock is grossly overvalued, and this thing is collapsing at the moment now. I'm just showing you guys some basic metrics. One could argue 10 times overvalued, one could argue 20 times overvalued, but it's definitely overvalued compared to the part I think the idiots who love Musk are going to say, but Chris, it's not a car company, it's going to be an AI and robot company. And that's like, all right, show me your robots. That's a really cool thing. They actually believe people are robots. Regarding Trump, I just want to show you guys this as well, because, again, much of Charlie Kirk's spiel, you got to worship Musk, worship Trump, because they got a lot of money. Trump has a whole bunch of bankruptcies, 6. You can see them right here. I just have a list there. The Trump Taj Mahal bankrupt, Trump Plaza Hotel bankrupt, Trump Casinos bankrupt, Trump Hotel and Casino Resorts bankrupt, and Trump Entertainment Resorts bankrupt. By definition, I think that's not a good business person, but there's that. If you don't know, the whole Trump story basically is they wanted to do a TV show, I think it was NBC, and they needed a popular face, that kind of stuff. All of the good business people were busy Trump was available. And that's true. Trump was available. They put him on TV and they kind of constructed the story for the TV show that he was so awesome. And the producers actually regret now that they created a monster essentially. But that's what the mythology. Trump's been really good at what Trump is good at. He's been really good at selling his brand, right? Living off debt, pumping out valuations, selling his brand. Very similar to Musk, which is actually quite interesting. And I want to show you guys this too as well. Talking about this stuff. These are all of Musk's various failures and his companies. People always act like this guy, does everything so awesome, but I'm just listening here to a whole bunch of this stuff. You talk about the explosions at SpaceX, or they haven't landed on the moon like they're supposed to. He keeps talking about going to Mars. He hasn't said anything there. I don't know what he's up to. You got the Roadster never showed up. What's wrong with the Model X? Who knows? Then you got the Neuralink problems, right? Well, on top of that, you got like the Vegas loop, you got the Chicago loop, so they seem to cancel, it didn't work. And then some sort of tunnel in LA, satellite problems, Hyperloop problems. What else you got? Twitter's got a bunch of problems, you guys know. So you got Solar City problems, Tesla Semi problems, Tesla Cybertruck problems, etc. I can pull videos on this stuff if you want me to, but I just pulled this up quickly so you guys can see. The other issue is that Musk doesn't have as much cash as you think he does. It's actually interesting. He uses this stock to borrow money based on the value of the stock, essentially, and he's contractually obligated to not borrow too much. It's in his contract with Tesla. On top of that, his pay package and the stock are actually locked up in the courts. Because the court recently in Delaware ruled that his pay package was illegal, effectively, that they cheated shareholders. And so it's hard to say how much money Musk actually has. He has a bunch of debt, but he's not as wealthy as you think he is. And that part of goes back to attacking the Charlie Kirk old pieces that Trump and Musk are both so awesome business people. They're so smart, and etc. There's more to mythology. I want you to have a listen to this.
We have been talking about we need better. See, we reject the Marxist premise that we're going to get rid of all money. It's not going to happen. That's the Pareto principle and the laws of nature, authored by nature's God, God Almighty. There will be people that end up at the top of your society. There will be people that end up with a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of influence. They just have more talent. The swan song of egalitarianism is just that. Come on. What you're looking right there is a combo package that may never happen again. Lightning in a bottle. It is grace from the heavens. The world's richest man, the world's most powerful man, combining forces, deconstruct the administrative state to restore us back to a constitutional intent.
So again, it's a worship of wealth, right? You have the most powerful people in the world. They're teaming up together. Wow, it's lightning bottle. Awesome, guys. And it was interesting because I was thinking about this. You guys may not know this about me. I was going to be a youth pastor when I was younger. I was much more in-depth with stuff back when I was younger. Today, not so much, but I grew up with this stuff. I read the Bible a couple of times. I understand it, right? And it's strange that you have these sort of pseudo-Christian people who just, like, really love money. It's weird to me. I don't really understand it, to be perfectly frank. I mean, I understand why people love money, but I don't understand how people pretend to be Christian and yet love money so much. And I just don't. All of you guys deserve that. But I want to say this. There's a big problem in policy with the way that these Charlie Kirks and other people talk. Right? So the way they say it is that if you have money, therefore you must have more talent.
Who wants an omelet? I'm cracking lots of eggs.
Oh, you hear a lot these days about waste and fraud and abuse. The government is wildly spending money on all this BS that doesn't benefit the American people. And everybody's looking for the waste and fraud and abuse. Now, I don't technically work for Doggy. I don't. But you know what? I think I've identified a little bit of waste, fraud, and abuse, and I think it would be very easy to get rid of it, actually. $10.7 million that's been spent on Donald Trump playing golf. Not so far in all of the time that he's been president. Just this term. It has not been 1 month yet, and he has spent nearly $11 million so he can play golf. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, how the hell could a trip to play golf one time cost that much money. No, but that's the thing. He has not gone to play golf once. He has gone to play golf every single weekend that he has been president so far. 4 separate trips to play golf. And he's now played at his own properties on 9 of his first 30 days in office. So, look, credit to him, he's still doing a lot of damage to the government. He's still wrecking things. He's still driving up prices really fast, even though he's spent nearly a third of his presidency on golf courses. But yeah, each time that he takes a trip, for instance, to Mar-a-Lago, it costs $3.4 million. And so that adds up to almost $11 million already. You extrapolate that out over the course of his entire second term, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars so he can be carted around the golf course and cheat at golf. And that's, by the way, not all the trips he's taken. His trip to the Super Bowl. How many millions of dollars did that cost? The trip for him to fly the Beast to Daytona so he could have his ass driven in circles around a track. How many millions of dollars did that cost? How many transgender operas could you pay for with the amount of money we're spending so he can fiddle around on the fairway? A lot of money already. And meanwhile, everybody's squirreled. They're looking at Doggy, and Doggy's all they're buying the DEI, and they're buying USAID is wasting money. Every single weekend, he's spending millions of dollars. This weekend, he will spend over $3 million so he can play golf. And you're paying for that. If you're a MAGA person, you voted for him, maybe you're fine. Hell, you've been transferring money to him for literally years. But you are paying for him to do that. And by the way, we were just going over the Doge cuts that they've made, and we can see in another clip. How many of those do you need to find just to offset his golf budget so far? Anyway, Sharon, we can't be surprised. He did this all throughout his first term. We paid for him to play golf dozens and dozens and dozens of times, but he's doing it again.
Yeah, and don't forget, I'm going to mention Live Golf again with the Saudis. He's making personal deals that are going to. One thing that the Trumps have is golf courses. Okay, I don't know if they're good, they're bad, whatever. I know he doesn't look good playing golf. Okay, but I'm not trying to make personal physical observations here. It's frowned upon. But that's what they do. He's turning over this American treasure of a sport, if you're into it, to the Saudis and making deals for himself. That's what, and we're picking up the tab. And the Secret Service and everybody who follows him has to stay for properties and this and that. And he's going to do the same thing over in Gaza. Once it's gifted to him, the waterfront property that Garrett is going to, have in a bumble will probably have some prime real estate there too. What more do you need to know?
Yeah. Absolutely insane. And if you're a MAGA person, you know that Donald Trump's a billionaire, right? Like, he's just a billionaire with a meme coin. You know when he did the rug pull and took all your money? He's a billionaire. He could just pay for it, right? Why can he not pull himself up by his bootstraps? Why doesn't he pay for his golf trips? Why is he demanding, insisting that the American taxpayer pay for him to have a hobby literally every weekend? To go play golf literally every week. Not once a year, twice a year with his family, a fun little trip to relax.
A sea of blue and yellow right across Canada in a show of solidarity with Ukraine.
There is an entire generation of Ukrainian children, like my son, from whom Russia has stolen a peaceful childhood.
Nazar Novanovsky is 15. He came to Canada just before the war began and worries about his grandmother, who was still in Kyiv.
Can you help us more, please? Like, we're very grateful for all the support, but we need a bit more because our situation right now is not that good.
Many Canadians of all backgrounds are standing behind the war-torn country as it defends its sovereignty.
No, I'm not Ukrainian. You don't need to be Ukrainian to know what's right.
Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Canada, which has one of the world's largest Ukrainian populations outside of that country, has committed over $19.5 billion in assistance and has welcomed more than 300,000 Ukrainians.
I have all my family left there, and I was the
first, but it wasn't just the overall stock market that was down. The gold stocks got clobbered very hard, unnecessarily so, which is again typical the case for the gold stocks. The GDX was down about 3.4% on the day, and about a similar amount on the week. And the GDXJ was down 4%. But gold was barely down, maybe $2 or $3 on Friday, and it was up about 1/3% on the week. So again, gold went up, and gold stocks went down. Now, gold stocks are still up about 15% on the year, so they're still beating gold, which is up about 10.5% on the year. But they should be up a lot more when gold has been this strong. And I'm going to get to the gold stocks a little bit later as far as why they went down. But I want to talk more about why the overall market went down. What was the news that drove the stock market down on Friday? And I think it's more confirmation of stagflation, which is exactly what I have been predicting all along. And stagflation is the one economic condition for which the Fed has no contingency plan. When Powell was asked what his plan was for stagflation, he knocked wood. He banged on the podium, and he said, "Well, we're just going to hope we don't have it." Right? Well, hope is not a plan. Right? But the reason the Fed doesn't have a plan is because there's nothing in their toolbox that will work. Right? The Fed doesn't have a lot of tools. Right? It can cut interest rates. It can raise interest rates. It can expand the money supply or contract it. I mean, that's basically it. Although it never really contracts much, but it can do QE, it can do QT, whatever. It doesn't have a lot. But when the economy is weak, that's when it cuts rates and prints money. When the economy is strong, it raises rates. Well, what do you do if the economy is weak and inflation is strong at the same time? The Fed's got nothing. That's why they just hope it doesn't happen. And that's also why the stress test that the Federal Reserve develops for the banks does not include a scenario of stagflation. Because I think the Fed knows that none of the banks could pass a stress test if they had a test for stagflation, which would be a weak economy where inflation and interest rates go up. Because the worst case scenario that the Fed has asked the banks to stress test is a weak economy where interest rates plunge and inflation goes way down, which is not that bad. What is bad is a weak economy where interest rates and inflation go way up. But the Fed did not ask any bank to run the numbers on that scenario because I think they know that all the banks would fail. But that's exactly where we are headed. And that is what the economic data that came out on Friday confirmed. So let me take a look at some of that data. First, we got the consumer sentiment number for February. And last month, the January was 67.8. And the expectation was for a slight improvement to 68. Instead, we went sharply in the other direction, all the way down to 64.7. That is a plunge in consumer confidence. In fact, the range of estimates for this number was a high of 70.1 and a low of 67.8. We came in way below. In fact, nobody thought consumer confidence would go down because 67.8 matched.
As a Zoomer, the 21st century is the only thing I've known. This results in subconscious assumptions in how I process my environment, which I forget aren't normal for the general population. For example, I mentally process the world's wars as
In the United States, it itself into moments of extreme difficulty. And we're also at a time when American capitalism is not only losing its empire, but also losing its position within the world economy. That's a very serious challenge to its future. You could pretend it wasn't there, you could deny it, but it's getting harder and harder as these tariffs and sanctions all show. When I was growing up in the United States, that was assumed to be somehow the magic benefit of being an American. Each generation would live better. You will live better than your parents. They live better than your grandparents, etc., etc., etc. It was just built into what came to be called American exceptionalism. It was nothing exceptional at all. It was that profits were better here for all kinds of reasons, and capital came here. And when profits became better somewhere else, capital left. This is a generation of Americans who don't believe that their children are going to have a higher standard of living than they do. More and more of the money you and I pay in taxes in the United States is not going to give us a useful service. It's going to pay off whoever lent money to the government. For 100 years, the Republican Party, the GOP, has been the champion of low taxes. That's its ultimate appeal. That's why the majority of higher income Americans tilt Republican, because the money they want to keep. They don't want to pay it in taxes. And they have the money to buy the politicians who will do that for them. And yet, what have we got? We've got the latest Republican leader being a champion of tariffs. Those are taxes. He's championing raising taxes on all of us. For what we buy from Mexico, for what we buy from China, for what? And he's getting it, he got into the White House championing what the Republican Party he leads has denounced for 100 years. If you were wondering whether the economy is changing, there's your proof. Keep that image in mind. The history of the United States is the history of an economy which in the 19th and 20th century grew spectacularly because it was strong enough to invite and to absorb millions upon millions of immigrants. And we were strong enough. We aren't anymore. We can't. We don't have enough jobs for our own people. We can't pay our own people properly. And when we bring in immigrants, they become horrified by what's happening to them and terrified to the people already here. We are weaker than we were. No one dares say that. So instead, we have a narrative: round up all the bad people and deport them. That's what Mr. Trump's message was in his first campaign, his second, and his third. He has been beating that drum till literally the dead horse has died and gone to heaven. It's over and over. But that's all it is, an attempt to change the narrative so he doesn't have to say to the American people what an honest leader would. We've got problems, and here's one of them. We are hysterical as a nation with the problems we can't solve and the magical scapegoats with which our leaders propose to distract us. Every capitalist around the world thinking about where they like to build their industry. Oh, do you want to become dependent on the United States as a market? You used to think, oh yeah, I'd love to penetrate that market, to have sales. Whoa, wait a minute. You are now talking about a country that, as a matter of regular politics, discusses and acts to exploit your vulnerability. Oh, you sell here? We'll hit you with a tariff. We'll cut your market off. Suddenly, there will be nothing you can do about it. You will have lost all that you invested in building your market base. And these people are thinking, well, that won't happen. It's already happened. We've talked about you and I. The best, lowest priced electric cars in the world are now made in China at a BYD corporation. All over the world, the competitors of the United States and even American companies active in those parts of the world are able to buy as inputs the best quality, cheapest electric vehicles. But those of competitors in the United States can't do that because it's twice the price. It's 100% tariff that Mr. Biden put on and that Mr. Trump will presumably maintain since he started the chain of tariffs on China. Okay, that's bad for the United States. That means competitors outside will have lower cost inputs than their competitors inside. And that means in the long run, and in the long run is a few years here, that's shrinkage of jobs here and jobs moving overseas. I thought we didn't want that to happen. But that's a consequence of what you are doing. You're making the United States a pariah loan economic partner. And it's going to dissuade all kinds of businesses, private and public, from putting much faith and much investment in the United States. It's a very bad deal that we are showing to the world we would do. Well, I'm afraid that we are now governed by those people who saw up on the day of the inauguration. The only dynamic center of the American capitalist system today is high tech, Silicon Valley. Those people now are the ones that are still making money. Everything else is either better done or more cheaply done or both elsewhere. Indeed, the United States' corporations moved ever since the 1970s in huge numbers. Look, half the cars produced in China now are produced by subsidiaries of American companies. The abandonment of America is something led by the corporations. You might, Mr. Trump likes to point to the Chinese, but they didn't do it. They couldn't make the corporations go there. Those corporations went there because it was profitable. Here's my fear. The United States' mass of working class people are being prepared to function the way the poor of the rest of the world function. Look at it. This government wants to attack Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. It wants to take away the few remaining supports. The federal minimum wage in this country is $7.25 per hour. It has been at that level since 2009. Every year since then, prices have gone up. Some years only 1 or 2%, other years 9 or 10%. Okay, that means for the last 16 years, 2009 to now, the poorest of the poor amongst us, people living on $7.25 an hour, have been savagely abused. Because every year with rising prices, that $7.25 buys you less. What kind of a society goes to people with $7.25 and does that? By hampering the competition they face from abroad. Now, let's take the most egregious example of these new tariffs that were implemented this last week against China by the United States. The most extreme example is the electric car and truck, where the tariff was was already in place, and 27.5% was raised to 30%. Let me explain briefly what that means. Imagine an electric car or truck made in China. Tell everyone that China is now the world's number one producer of electric cars and trucks. They have figured out in the last 10 years that people have been competing in various parts of the world to produce a profitable electric vehicle as the way our society is going to replace horrible pollution of the gas-powered automobile with an electric automobile. Put aside whether that is an adequate climate control response isn't. Well, let's deal just with okay, the Chinese have done it. They won that competition hands down. They produced the highest quality at the lowest price. So the competition has happened. Lots of companies here in the United States have been working at producing electric vehicles and the batteries needed to power them, but the Chinese have won that. Their system, think about, has been able to mobilize their scientific talent, their technology, their corporations, private and public, and they've won the competition. So if the world was going to buy the best, cheapest electric vehicle, we would all be buying Chinese. Much of the world is doing it, including Europe. Chinese cars and trucks, you see them on the road, no problem. But no American sees them. Why? Because the 27.5% tariff means that whatever the Chinese charge for their trucks, electric trucks and cars, you have to pay that price to the Chinese if you were an American, plus 27.5% going to Uncle Sam as the tariff. That prices the Chinese out of the American market. You're going to make this even worse because Americans know and have told our government that the Chinese continue to improve their technology so that they're going to be even cheaper and even better than the Americans and others competing with them are likely to be for years into the future. That's how far ahead the Chinese have achieved. Okay, so we are now raising it to, if a car costs $20,000 that you're buying from China to pay to the Chinese, you'll have to add another $20,000 and pay $40,000 here in the United States because you have to pay $20 to U.S. government in tariff on top of the $20 to China. This effectively protects everybody producing a car here in the United States. If it costs $35,000 in the United States to produce a roughly similar truck or car, well, then you can sell it at 35. You could sell it at 36, 37, 38, because it would always still be cheaper to buy that car than the $40,000 you'd have to pay for the Chinese. That's why it's called protection. And it is mostly occurring because the losers of the competition don't want to pay the price of having lost the competition. There's no nice way to say this, and nobody should be fooled when the losers of the competition insist that the winner cheated. That's what they always say. It's never their fault. It's not they didn't develop the technology. They didn't develop the expertise in batteries. They didn't, no. They did everything right. The other side is cheating. Secretary of the Treasury Yellen went to China and invented an entirely new economics. Excess capacity, she said. The Chinese produce huge factories. Of course they do. That's how they achieve their efficiency. It's called economies of scale. It's something we teach economics students in the first year. If you produce a lot of something, you can bring down the cost per unit of what you produce. So you always build in excess capacity. Competitive enterprises do it all the time. It's part of American economic history. She's just counting, Miss Yellen is, on people not understanding these basics, and so finding this to be some sort of argument as if the Chinese have cheated. No, they didn't. They outdid you. The competition always has winners and losers. And I know that here in America, I'm born and raised here, we cannot imagine the United States losing ever anything. But we do. We lost the war in Vietnam. We lost the war in Afghanistan. But Americans need to believe that we're always winning. The tariffs are a sign that American dominance, which we got used to after World War II, from the second half of the 20th century, was the dominance of the United States. And with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1989, it left the United States in what political scientists like to call a unipolar moment. But that's over now. The United States isn't what it was, and the Chinese and their allies have become a powerful new competitor. And the United States is having a hard time adjusting, which I can understand. And the politicians don't know what to do. Their ideology was free market. That didn't work out. They're now switching to economic nationalism, protecting everywhere, sanctioning, funding this company, funding that company. Billions have been given, for example, to Elon Musk. The production of electric vehicles in this country by Tesla is a government-funded project. Americans don't want to face that. But if they hadn't done that, then he would have done everything elsewhere, or he wouldn't have done it at all. The government is crucial, not just when we collapsed, like in 2008 and 9, and the government had to come in and bail out the banks, or in 2020-21, when the government had to save us from the COVID pandemic. The government is continuously now being brought in, because this capitalism cannot compete. The United States is at an earlier stage. The sanctions you see, the tariffs you see, that's a switch to protectionism by a society that has no confidence in its own company's ability to compete. We used to. That's when the U.S. was the champion of free trade around the world. That's because we could win in those situations. We were the most technologically dynamic. We were the fastest growing. But we're not anymore. And we haven't been for a generation now. And it's beginning to impact us day by day. And nobody should be fooled by leaders who continue to sanction and to tariff as if we were free to do that without consequences. Here's the most important bottom line for Americans. If you raise the price of the tariff, and you raise the cost of imported goods, whether they are solar panels, or semiconductor chips, or electric vehicles, or any of the other items, if you put a tariff on them, it means everything coming in from abroad costs much more, which allows the American competitors to charge more than they could have ever gotten away with if they had had to compete. Unfortunately, if we had better leaders, they would be talking to us about it. What are we going to do as a nation? The road we are on of a declining empire becoming more and more unequal.
Even when we're declining, there are a small and small group of people becoming wealthier and wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. Those seem contradictory to me. How do you reconcile that?
Not at all, because it's exactly what happened in every other economy, every other empire. The people, and it's easy to understand why.
Okay.
What it is, an economy is going up. The people at the top can afford to be generous. They're making a ton of money. They're becoming wealthy. Sure, they can pay an extra 4 or 5% a year to their workers. Keep them happy, avoid a strike, and there's so much money in the growth period that you can afford it. But when the economy goes down, what the people at the top have always done and are doing now in America is those at the top, the CEOs, the people who you all know who they are, they use their wealth and power, shouldn't surprise you, to hold on. And because they have wealth and power, they can do that. They can hold on, which means the costs of the downturn, we, the rest of us, it's offloaded onto us. So what you're seeing is that the inequality in the United States gets worse. And look at the irony. I'll give you a statistic earlier this week. The the most important research outfit in the world, Oxfam, located in Britain, keeps track of this, gave their annual report, and it added up the experience of the roughly 3,000 billionaires that exist in the world today. And as you rightly said, many of them are American. Not all by a long shot, but many of them. Here's the statistic it gave. Across the year 2024 just ended, the collective wealth of the 300 billionaires rose by over $6 billion per day. Capitalism as a global system is making those already super wealthy even more super wealthy. Right. And that's what our leaders should be